right, boys and girls, I hope you are having a great day. I'm excited to do our review lesson with you today because we're reviewing one of my favorite things, and that is decimals. So when we write a decimal using numbers like 423 and 168 thousandths, we call that standard form. Okay, standard form is, where we see most decimals in the real world. All of our price tags and, menu prices are all written in standard form. That's just using our numbers and our decimal point. We can also write decimals in word form. Word form is writing the decimal using words, how we would read it. Okay, so for example, in this decimal, I would read the first number just like I would any number I see. So this is 423. When I'm writing it in word form, I spell it out. 423. We know our decimal point says and. That's the only time we say and when we're reading numbers. Then for our decimal values, we read this number just like we would, 168. Oops. Okay, 168. Then we finally write whatever the last number's place value is. So let's do a quick review. The first one behind the decimal is the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So the 8 is in the thousandths place. That THS lets us know it's a decimal. So in order to write this decimal, we say 423 and 168 thousandths. Finally, the last form we are going to review is expanded form. This is when it's super important to know what each number's place value is because it helps us when we're writing standard form. So we start with our first number, which is 4, and we're going to times by whatever place it's in. So the 4 is in the hundreds place, so we say 4 times 100 plus. Our next number is 2 times 10 because it's in the tens place, plus 3 times 1 because it's in the ones place, plus 1 times, now the 1 is in the tenths place. Hopefully you remember we represent the tenths place by writing 1/10 plus the 6 is in the hundredths place and we represent that by writing hundredths. And then finally the 8 is in the thousandths place and we represent that by writing thousandths. So this decimal, 423 and 168 thousandths, can be represented 3 ways. In standard form, using just the numbers, word form, writing out how we would read the decimal, and then finally expanded form, where we write the number and what place value spot it is in. So let's go ahead and do some practice problems. Let's say I had 12 and 72 thousandths. I've already written that in standard form. In order to write it in word form, I need to make sure I can read it because however I read it is how I write it. We read the first number, which is 12. Our decimal says and. Now this number, if I were to see this, on a price tag, I wouldn't say 0.72. I would just say 72. And last but not least, the 2 is in the thousandths place. So this is word form, standard form, and then an expanded form. 1 times 10 plus 2 times 1. Remember, 10 because it's in the tenths place, 1 because it's in the ones place. I don't have to do anything with the 0 because I know 0 times any number is always 0. So I'm going to skip it and go right to the 7. 7 times 100th. And finally 2 times thousandths. So if a number's in standard form, you can also write it in word form or in expanded form. Let's say I have a number in word form already. Okay, this says 1 7/700ths. So I'm going to write my place value chart. This is just my work to help me. This isn't how I would write my answer, but remember, I like when you guys show your work because it lets me know what you're thinking. My decimal is and, so I know everything in front of my and is going to be my whole numbers. Everything behind my and is going to be my decimal values. So 1 is easy. I know that's 1. And 7/100ths. So my 7 needs to end in the hundredths place. So this is tenths, hundredths. Hopefully you remember we put our 0 here for our placeholder. So this in standard form is 1 7/100ths. Now I can take this and write it in expanded form. Pretty simple. 1 times 1 plus 7 times 100th. We'll do one more. We'll take a number that's written in expanded form and write it in our 2 other forms. So let's say I had this number.